I didn't know you two were friends.
Well, we're fixing to be friendly.
Fixin' to be friendly. That can be my column headline.
Let's take a quick look at how the old Hollywood studio system worked, shaping the careers of legends and creating some of cinema's most iconic films. From controlling every aspect of an actor's life to dictating what films could be made, the studios ruled Hollywood from the 30s to the 50s. But eventually, things began to unravel.
Shut up! You're gonna go out there and you're gonna finish Hail Caesar. You're gonna give that speech to the feet of the penitent thief and you're gonna believe every word you say.
Number 1. The Big Five and Little Three studios dominated Hollywood. 5 studios emerged from the silent film era of the 1920s to dominate American cinema. These studios, known as the Big Five, were MGM, 20th Century Fox, RKO, Paramount, and Warner Brothers. Various other studios and production companies clamored for a piece of the pie. The 3 others who ate at the big boys' table, known as the Little Three, were Universal, United Artists, and Columbia. Number 2. The men behind the Big Five were Jewish immigrants with a background in theater. Jewish immigrants. Adolf Zukor, Louis B. Mayer, and the brothers Harry, Albert, Samuel, and Jack Warner came to Hollywood when the vaudeville and burlesque circuit in the Northwest began to falter. They owned theaters that attracted working-class immigrants and first-generation Americans. They chose Hollywood for a number of reasons. California was as far away as they could get from Thomas Edison, who liked to sue filmmakers for patent infringement. They also came for the weather. The warm and virtually rain-free climate allowed for longer production times, especially inland from the coast. The terrain mirrors many other national and even international locations, and the light is perfect for filming. But the main reason for choosing film over theater was very simple. It was more profitable. Number 3. Studios controlled which films appeared in theaters with block booking. Studios sold films to theaters in blocks. A standard block contained 20 or more films, one of which was a quality picture with wide appeal, the rest a grab bag of B-movies of varying quality. Theater owners weren't fans of the block system because it ate up most of the year's schedule, but they had to go along with it in order to get the biggest films each year. In many cases, when exhibitors were bidding for a block from a studio, some of the films in it hadn't even been made yet, so programmers had no idea how bad a picture might be. What's more, if the final product differed from the studio's descriptions, the programmers had no idea who the project might appeal to and how to promote and schedule it. Cinemas were also required to take short films that were attached to feature films. Block booking was a major obstacle to exhibitors catering to the tastes of their clientele. In addition, the Big Five owned controlling stakes in cinema chains that were exempt from block booking and would therefore only show the best, most commercially successful, and highest quality films. This cut into the business of theaters tied to the block system. Number 4. War was big business for the studios. The First World War led to a boom in the American film industry. The public wanted stories to escape from their lives, but also craved news from the front, which cinema newsreels provided. Public demand led to technological advances, while Hollywood's competition, European cinema, struggled to get much done with all the fighting going on. Hollywood stars were also an important part of the war effort during the Second World War. Bette Davis ran the Hollywood Canteen, where stars such as Frank Sinatra, Rita Hayworth, Cary Grant, Joan Crawford, Judy Garland, Humphrey Bogart, and Shirley Temple served and entertained the troops. Clark Gable, Jimmy Stewart, Marlene Dietrich, and Leslie Howard even joined the armed forces, and Dietrich was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Number 5. The Haye Code was a self-censorship system created to avoid federal interference. Formerly known as the Motion Picture Production Code, The Haye Code was introduced in 1930, but wasn't strictly enforced until 1934. The code was a way for studios to self-censor in response to the government's threat to ban films that the public might find offensive or morally unacceptable. Pre-code films were far more racy and tolerant than post-code films. Sexuality, nudity, feminism, and gay characters were all part of the cinematic landscape before the code was enforced. Will H. Hays was president of the Motion Picture Producers and Distributors of America when the code was adopted, hence the name. But it is more closely associated with Joseph Breen, who was appointed by Hays to enforce it. The code drastically changed American cinema by outlawing sex, pregnancy, and promiscuity, upholding the sanctity of marriage, and adding twin beds to the boudoir. The code also banned interracial relationships and gay characters. Bad guys couldn't get away with murder. Violence was toned down or sanitized. The American happy ending was born. Meanwhile, in Europe, characters suffered anguish, were betrayed, and pondered real-life issues, where a happy ending was never guaranteed. The upside of the Hays Code: it created snark. Many took direct aim at the code, mocking it outright. Number 6. The talent scout system was wide-ranging and ravenous. Hollywood talent scouts scoured Broadway, the vaudeville circuit, and radio for fresh talent. They looked everywhere for a fresh face, including the streets. In January 1937, 15-year-old Julia Jean Turner was spotted drinking a soda outside a Hollywood store after skipping a typing class. By some accounts, it was the Hollywood Reporter founder William R. Wilkerson who spotted her, although it could have been a talent scout. She was approached and later introduced to Zeppo Marx, who was an agent as well as an actor. With her mother's approval, she signed with his agency and was soon cast in They Won't Forget. Turner was an instant success, not because of her talent — she had no lines and was quickly killed off — but because of her tight skirt and chest-hugging sweater. Turner, who chose Lana as her first name, was known as Sweater Girl. Turner said of her studio years, "It was all beauty and it was all power. Once you made it, they protected you. They gave you fame. The ones who kept going got higher and higher and brighter, and they were stars. And they were treated like stars. We had the best." Number 7. Stars had to look good. The studio took care of the rest. The average contract for an actor was 7 years under the de Havilland Act. Actors appeared in whatever films the studio wanted. Studios also loaned actors to other studios without consent or permission, sometimes as punishment for the actor's misbehavior. Actors of all kinds were under contract: leading, supporting, and extras. And all casting was typecasting. Looks over talent was the Hollywood philosophy. An actor was groomed, chiseled, and molded to have a screen presence. They were given lessons in diction, posture, riding, fencing, and dancing. Appearance was extremely important. Weight maintenance was standard in contracts. Physical fitness was strictly enforced. Anything that couldn't be worked off was surgically altered. If a nose was too big or a chin too wide, plastic surgery was a given. A star is made, created, carefully and cold-bloodedly built out of nothing, said Louis B. Mayer. All I ever looked for was a face. If someone looked good to me, I'd have them tested. If a person looked good on film, if he photographed well, we could do the rest. Number 8. Studios owned their stars and controlled their personal lives. The studio controlled every aspect of a star's life, from how they spent their private time to who they dated and married, and pretty much every other aspect of their personal lives. If an actor had an affair, got pregnant, had a drug or alcohol problem, or had an illegitimate child, the studio made it a high priority to deal with it and keep that knowledge from the public. If an actor was gay, That knowledge was closely guarded. Actors stayed in the closet and were regularly forced into marriages of convenience. Crimes and misdemeanors were covered up. The studios worked with the police and the press to keep things quiet. Number 9. Studio fixers like Eddie Mannix helped stars avoid trouble with the law. If you've seen the Coen brothers' 2016 film Hail Caesar, you'll know all about Eddie Mannix, a notorious studio fixer of old Hollywood. He got stars out of trouble by any means necessary. He got Joan Crawford out of a jam, perhaps with the help of the mafia, when some blackmailers came across a copy of a racy film she had made before she became famous. The following story of Clark Gable by Warren Joe Foy Harris shows the lengths to which studios went to protect their stars. It also debunks the long-standing rumor that Gable had hit and killed someone. In March 1945, Gable's heavy drinking finally caught up with him. Driving home from a party celebrating the American victory at Iwo Jima, he lost control of the car as he passed Bristol Circle, a densely tree-lined traffic island on Sunset Boulevard in the Brentwood suburb of West Los Angeles. As it was around 4 in the morning, there may not have been any eyewitnesses to what actually happened. But MGM publicists and security chief Whitey Hendry arrived at the scene before the police or the press were called. MGM publicist Howard Strickling later claimed that Gable had crashed into a tree on the front lawn of Harry Friedman, a talent agent for MCA. According to Strickling, Friedman knew enough about the industry's penchant for secrecy to call MGM instead of the cops. It wouldn't have been good for a photographer to come along and take a picture of Clark Gable lying on the lawn, covered in blood, and his car wrecked, Strickling said. After a studio doctor arrived to patch Gable up, he was taken to Cedars of Lebanon Hospital, and the wrecked car was quickly towed away. At the hospital, Gable required 10 stitches for head and shoulder wounds and was held for observation. He was in a drunken stupor and kept threatening to walk out, so all his clothes were taken away to reduce the risk. He spent the next 3 days in isolation, completely dehydrated. The press had so many informants at Cedars of Lebanon that Gable's presence was known within minutes. Amusingly, the story put out by MGM was that Gable's car had been sideswiped by a drunk driver who then sped off. Nobody believed it, but it got printed and started rumors about what really happened. One of the more extreme had Gable killing a pedestrian and MGM persuading one of their junior executives to take the rap for him. After confessing that he had actually been driving the car and that Gable had only been a passenger, the exec supposedly served a year in jail for manslaughter, after which MGM rehired him with a whopping pay raise and pension plan. Number 10. Gossip columnists damaged reputations, ruined careers, and got information directly from studios. One of the many ways the studios controlled stars and their images was through the powerful, venomous pens of gossip columnists Hedda Hopper, a former actress, and Luella Parsons. Hopper's and Parsons' careers were completely dependent on the information the studios gave them. Examples of their work include Hopper's frequent negative coverage of Charlie Chaplin over his politics, controversial paternity suit, and marriage to an 18-year-old at the age of 54. Her work contributed to Chaplin being prevented from entering the United States in 1952. Parsons also ruined Ingrid Bergman's squeaky clean image by exposing her affair with Roberto Rossellini. They eventually married. Hopper and Parsons also feuded. The two were friends, but the studios turned them into bitter enemies, pitting them against each other as they did with stars like Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. The aim was control, and it was very effective. As New York University professor Moya Luckett told Vanity Fair, what they did was, in some ways, more difficult than what we have today. They were very sophisticated in making it look like there was independent reporting and that there was a possibility of getting at the truth through journalists like Hopper and Parsons. For all its faults, the studio system gave us some unforgettable films and laid the foundations for the modern film industry. Hollywood may have changed, but the impact of this era still reverberates today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more insights into Hollywood's golden age.